Hello, welcome, Roz. How are you? I think this is actually the first time we've actually seen each other physically. We've only heard each other or written to each other. So it's really, really lovely to see you. But before I introduce you, I would just like to say my name is Moira Doherty. I am business coach and mentor to women over the age of 40 who want to change life midlife. And this is all about inspiring women to who want to change their life, who've got to a point in their life where they're thinking, there's got to be more to my life than this. And so we've launched International Midlife Women's Day with an event to celebrate women in midlife. And part of that is this interview series. So Roz has a really interesting story. Roz once came into my group when I said, what are you doing? And Roz said, I've got family round and they're choosing body parts, which caused quite a stir. So Roz, tell us a little bit about you, about your journey, because you've got a flourishing business that came out of real disaster, didn't it? So tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so hello everybody, I'm Roz. I have got the most amazing company that I've been running for the last 14 years, and it's called Mannequin, funnily enough, and possibly you could guess what it involves. So I started the business in 2007. So in 2004, I came back from a 10-year sprint in Malawi, where I lived with my former partner. And we had a big bust up there. And although after the bust up, we sort of, I really tried to make my way as a single woman, businesswoman in an African country. It was incredibly difficult. So it got to the stage where I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give up, I'm going to bail out. So I phoned my mum and said, can I have some airfares, please? Because I had no money. I mean, literally, we were surviving on peanut butter sandwiches, basically. That's something that can keep you and your children alive if you're ever in that kind of situation. And then when I came back to England, it was terrifying, but it was also quite empowering as well, because I literally had nothing. I had my boys, my two boys, which is everything. But in terms of sort of anything to generate an income and a future out of, I had 4 cardboard boxes and not a penny to my name. So I just thought, okay, I'll go out and get a job or something like that. But I didn't really want to, because I've got lots of business experience, so I didn't really want to go out and get a job, because I wanted to be able to be there for the boys, because obviously they're transitioning from, living in paradise to a council estate in England, which was quite a huge change, really. And so I decided that I hadn't even had a TV for so many years. And when I came back, I started watching daytime TV and all the rest of it. And I started watching Mary Portas, and where she would walk around with a clipboard and sort of like help retail shops that were struggling to get going again. And having had a retail shop before, I thought, well, I've got all the experience in that. Why can't I try that? So I set up a website that basically was a retail consultancy. Not a lot of work was coming through from it. I think if I'd been in London, I could have done more, but I wasn't. I was in Nottinghamshire, in a sleepy little market town, and not very many opportunities. So as you do, you just sort of like, you try every day to try something different. And I was researching a lot of different content to add to my website that I'd made. And then I came across mannequins one day, and I thought, well, mannequins really are part of retail, but I've never ever worked with them like in my life. So I started researching about the history of them, how they're used, where they're made, where they come from, and sort of put articles on the website. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to put a page up. Let me just punch above my own weight and let's start fishing. And I put a page up with pictures of mannequins on and my phone number, and it literally just said there are mannequins to hire. Didn't think anything of it. A couple of days later, my phone just starts ringing like crazy. Have you got 6 mannequins that I can use in London next week? And I'm like, because I didn't have any mannequins. I was lying basically about the fact that I had them, because I'm just trying out ideas. And having a web page and a website and a web presence like that is such a good way to test ideas, you know, because you can sort of pretend and see what comes back. So I had to sort of just say, oh, I'll just go and check in the warehouse. Now, I didn't have a warehouse because I'm in the corner of a council house on a council estate. Put the phone down, go and make myself a cup of tea, come back, answer the phone, you know, call them back. And I said, oh, I'm terribly sorry. They're all out on hire for the next couple of weeks. Anyway, it kept happening and it kept happening until it reached the point where someone wanted them in 2 weeks' time. And I was like, aha, right, here's my chance. So I'd secure the order and then I'd go and buy the mannequins and then I would supply the mannequins to them. And then, of course, the mannequins would come back. So now they're like free mannequins because someone else has paid for them effectively. Basically, that went on and on and on and on until the house filled up with mannequins. No one could see the TV for, you know, bums and boobs in the way. I then went and got like a 20-foot shipping container. And I remember being so scared because I was still on my dole money. You know, I'm just playing with the idea, but, you know, still receiving benefits and everything. And the shipping container was going to cost me £25 a week. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to afford it? What happens if it all goes wrong? And anyway, I just thought, no, let's just try it and see. So the mannequins moved into the shipping container, 20-foot shipping container. All of a sudden, that was now full because I'm doing these slow orders and, you know, it's happening. It's going, not quick, but it's going on. And then, of course, the container was full. So they had to start coming back in the house again, which family started complaining again. So I thought, right, I'll get one of them party-sized gazebos and put it in the back garden. So that started filling up as well. But in the meantime, and this is over the course of what, 3 months or so, meantime, the money's coming in. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Right, I could go and afford a warehouse. So I went and I rented a 1,000 square foot warehouse. Guess what happened? Not enough space. 2,000 square foot, 4,000 square foot. And it was at the point where I had 8,000 square foot of mannequins, warehouses for mannequins. And at that point, 10 staff because it was growing rapidly. And I decided that, right, it's obviously working now. So what's the future? What am I going to do next? And I was paying around about £2,500 each month in rent. But we were generating a big profit. It was going really, really well. So I went to the bank and I said, right, I want to buy somewhere. Here's like the last 4 years of accounts. How good am I to, you know, loan money now to go and buy somewhere? And they said, absolutely, go and find somewhere. And I sort of, I came across several, it took me about a year to find the right place. But then I bought, it's a 2-acre site in Lincolnshire. It's an old RAF, part of an RAF base. That was used in the Second World War. It's out in the middle of nowhere, so I managed to buy it. And then that's when loads more mannequins came in because I'm hiring them, so I'm reusing them. You know, they're going round and round, and to me, that's a way of recycling things.
Definitely.
So I put sort of added it to my strap line on my website, if you like, to say that oh yeah, I'm recycling mannequins. Phone rings. Oh, we've got about 100 mannequins that are going to go in the bin, but we'd like to recycle them. Are you interested? So I said, yeah, of course, no problem. Send them. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 months, truckload after truckload after truckload came in. I think we had about 25 Arctics turn up full of mannequins. And probably about 35 7.5 ton trucks. And we basically just swamped this whole site, 2 acres full of mannequins, around about 25,000. I mean, we never ever counted them, but we calculated with the amount of trucks that came in, it was about 25,000 mannequins that came in.
Wow. And so how, with all that happening, how did you then progress to where you are now? So you've got an amazing story about coming back with absolutely nothing and having to leave paradise, as you said, and move into a council house. What support did you have along the way that you found was really, really helpful? That you can give some information, like give some little ditty of advice to people who are thinking, I'm sure nobody wants to have 25,000 mannequins, but the principle is that you were desperate. I know you've said to me before, where you were desperate. Your life was just horrible, and you were desperate to change it, and you were just trying things, and then you came across the mannequin thing. So what things actually helped you? What sort of steps helped you to turn this, right, I've got to try this idea, I'm going to try this idea, oh God, this is working. But what steps really helped you to turn it into a really good business?
My vision for the end of the day was incredibly important to me, because I was a single parent who'd had quite a successful business with my former partner before, who completely cut me out of all of it. So in my first sense, I guess that I needed to replace that with something, and a job, just having a 9-to-5 job wasn't going to do that, because I needed to generate, big money, because I've got boys that might want to go to university in the future, and everything was always tailored towards, it's almost like, when you're a single parent, it's almost like you've got to be both the mother and the father. So you've got to be two people in one. So a huge amount of sacrifice, a huge amount of dedication and focus as well on, this is where we're going to go. I mean, I was incredibly lucky that I found Mannequin, because it was almost as if it was gifted to me. It's almost as if, someone knew up there I was having a hard time, and right, well, here's a good idea. What can you do with it? I mean, I studied business studies at school. I first invented my first business when I was 8. I wasn't old enough to rent the village hall to go and actually instigate it, but I've always been like kind of in that mind. And then having doing the business studies from college, and then actually running the business with my former partner as well, I kind of knew all the steps, and I'd made mistakes. So it was like, it's a clear path. It's like a fresh start. How are you going to do this? I mean, just as one example, in the early days when, I was probably lucky to be pulling in £100 a month, I still decided that I'm going to be big. My thought process and my mindset was, there's no limit on this. And so from day one, I went VAT registered, which most people running a small business, they wouldn't do that. They would wait till they get to the VAT threshold. But in my mind, when I get to that point, I don't want to either put my price up by 20% or absorb 20% of the cost. So let's just do it from now, and let's run it like it's big. Right from the beginning. I mean,
I think that mindset is important, isn't it? That it doesn't matter what anybody that's watching this, it doesn't matter. Not everybody wants to have a huge company. Not everybody wants to $250,000 a year or whatever it is. Some people, they're just quite happy to earn £500 or even £1,000 a month, but that's still bigger than they're doing now. But it's having the mindset, oh, I'm going to do this, isn't it? That is the thing that drives you. It's the mindset that says, I know there's hurdles, but I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, when I started as well, I did do my research into what other mannequin companies were bringing in, and it's in the millions. And so that was, even having, say, £1 million turnover was not a problem for me to ever think about that, and those big numbers. And I mean, we all experience it, even say writing out an invoice and asking someone to pay it can be awkward, and I get all of that. But thing is if you don't ask for that money, you're not going to get where you want to get. So like the whole vision side of it is just so incredibly important. And for you to get where you want, send your kids to university, or as in my case, Mum, I want to be a pilot, okay, that's going to cost a lot of money, but okay, let's go for it. Unless I'd had those big numbers and not be afraid of them, then it possibly wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. I mean, interestingly, I think the most we've ever done is probably about £500,000 turnover. We're not doing that now. We've obviously, everyone's had a problem with the pandemic and everything. But it's interesting is that, it grew to that stage, and then it's kind of gone backwards, but it's gone backwards onto a nice amount that I'm I'm
Yeah.
happy with, and it's enough. And I think that's quite an interesting thing actually in business, when you're so many years down the line. You know, I mean, even just employing staff, all of a sudden you're not that person who created an amazing idea and made a business. You turn into a people manager, you know, which is a completely different set of skills again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it was challenging when it was at 10 staff, but now it's back down smaller. It's like, this is a doddle, you know, and it's great. It's a great place to be now. Yeah.
Good. And what advice would you give to anybody? We were saying before that surrounding yourself with like-minded women, being part of a community, having support is really, really important. Not just your family and friends, because they are important too, but they often don't really understand what it's like to be a woman in midlife trying to run a business. They just don't get the challenges that are involved in that. So what advice would you give to anybody who's running a business and either struggling with it or thinking about changing their life and starting a business? What advice would you give them?
Definitely to join a community, whether free or paid, to get that support of people, and to be able to have the confidence to ask. Don't ever think that a question is silly, or I'm not going to answer that because, you know, that make me look like blah, blah. No, it doesn't, because if you've got something you need to ask, I bet you there's another 10 women behind you who will say, oh, thank God she said she asked that. I don't need to ask that now.
Exactly. That happens all the time.
Yeah. And confidence, you know, just step into it. And even if you are worried and you are scared, then just take those small, tiny steps. That means that you've just done something every day to go, you know, towards what you want things to look like. That's really important. The whole vision thing for me is, what do you want this to look like? And then take those, you know, those tiny steps. But undoubtedly, being in a like-minded community of business women, especially, I think it gives, you feed off of each other. You know, you can share experiences and all the rest of it. And that is really, really important. I think it's quite easy to do when you're a business person, business woman, and you're on your own and you're working on your own, that the isolation is, it's deafening, actually. It's deafening.
It's really tough.
So that's definitely what I would recommend.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, Roz, thank you so much. I love your mannequin story, and I'm sure that lots and lots of people will start to follow you just to see just to see more about the mannequins. And like I say, once in my community on a Sunday, what are you up to? And lots of the women were answering, and you said showing my family picking out body parts, and it just made me laugh. And every time I think about that conversation, it makes me laugh. So that's brilliant. So yes, Roz, thank you so much. Your journey has been is inspiring, because you actually fell on really incredible hard times. So for anybody that's feeling that they are on hard times, you can turn it around, and that's why your story is so incredible, apart from the mannequins, and inspiring. So thank you so much for joining me, Roz. It's been a real pleasure, and enjoy your weekend. And I'm sure I will speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Moira. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.